Well, we're close enough to Halloween, so why not?
Okay. Art, my great-grandfather came to Los Angeles in 1866, and in 1882 he built a building that is in Little Tokyo. I don't know if you've been to L.A., but I'm actually 1 block from Parker Center, and I'm 2 blocks from L.A. City Hall.
Of course I've been there, yes.
I still own the building. It's a National Historic Landmark building. And with my 17-year, we'll put it mildly, a very rocky marriage, I've lived in the upstairs of this building for 11 years, which used to be a dance hall. For years, Art, and I'm a retired police officer now, as a matter of fact, for years, people have said, aren't you afraid of being in that haunted building today? And I said, yeah, blow it. I'm not listening to you. There's no haunting. It's, if it was, it would be my family. Let me cut to the chase. I had a tenant downstairs that was there with a video store for 16 years. And they had the largest collection of adult Asian videos in the city of L.A. Now, before every caller now starts calling in and jumping on me, oh, the policeman's selling porn, I'm the landlord, okay? What they do, it's legal. It's on them, not on me.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids that worked there were actually like these Japanese national, like rock and roller kids, and I truly believe that they were on drugs. And anyway, they used to say the same thing: is the building haunted? That it was like, okay, yeah, I don't want to hear it. I evict them. The guy that owned it goes bad. I evict him. He runs back to Japan. Everything else. I'm stuck with all this porn. I start cleaning the place out. I'm sitting there 5, 6 o'clock in the morning cleaning it out. Some girl in the community says, let's just sell it at $1 a video. So I start selling it.
Oh.
I have never had a problem in this building in my life. I feel very warm, very centered in the building. I mean, I'm like a trendsetter in loft living, if you follow me with that. I mean, it's a big deal in L.A. now. Well, I was doing it 11 years ago. Art, I'm in the building, and all of a sudden, I mean, when I'm selling these videos $1 a piece, and this is the truth, and I have work vice, every sick idiot in the world starts showing up, and they want to take the video boxes to go to the bathroom, if you're following me.
Okay.
And that's when stuff started happening. The electricity stops working in the building. I mean, the block is live, but you turn lights on, and they turn themselves off. Art, I'm wandering around the back of the building, which used to be my great-grandfather's blacksmith shop, and somebody smacks me in the back of the head, except there's nobody in the building except me. This stuff starts. So I'm trying to go through this very quickly. I then start getting contacted by people in the community saying, well, yeah, people stopped going to the building because there was this very, very old man and very, very old woman that would stand in the corners in the adult sections and stare at them. And I thought, oh, boy, this isn't good. Make a long story short, you had a guest by the name of Dr. Larry Muntz, and I actually dealt with in 1997. The guy from Ghost Expeditions.
Yes.
I actually had dealt with Dr. Larry Muntz, this is no joke, it can be confirmed, about a Los Angeles police station that was haunted. We were having some problems in the station, and I'm not going to go into it, and Dr. Muntz had come in and run his tests and brought in his people and everything else. And the site of this actual station, the city got the property because an old woman had been raped and murdered on the location. I mean, that's legitimate. It's not just a made-up story. It's the truth. And there were some other things going on there, and Dr. Muntz dealt with it. So I called Dr. Larry Muntz in, and he starts looking into everything. And he even said, that this building is haunted, but the strange thing was, and you'll love this story, it's haunted basically by my relatives, and he said it's the most friendly haunting that he's ever met, because I'm going to tell you, when one of my family members, they're thinking it's my great-grandmother, and again, I don't believe in ghosts, but I know what was going on and what's been happening in the building. It's a very warm, friendly feeling. Even to this day right now, after everything that went on, I'm not scared. Even when I got smacked, I wasn't scared.
Well, what do you mean you don't believe in ghosts?
Art, okay, my family on my dad's side are Jewish. My mother's side were Christians. I'm a graduate of Pepperdine University. I even went back 8 years ago to learn Hebrew to a Bible college here in L.A.
All fine, but you've been through this. You've experienced it. How can you not believe in that which you have actually experienced?
I'm using the word Art. I'm using the word ghost very loosely because I don't know what other word to use. The place obviously is, quote, haunted, because I have a lack of better words. I believe that there's energy. I believe that there's in family. And after listening to you for like 20 years, but if you're a cop and sitting in a police car writing reports and stuff, you've listened to Art Bell, and I've heard all the people saying when they go to die, their family members show up, and then that is the only thing that probably scared me, thinking, why would my great-grandmother be hanging around? Maybe I'm getting ready to go. If you follow what
I do. All right. Well, thank you, Tony. So there you have it, an ex-cop. I mean, look, I hit him with that because after you've actually experienced, it's kind of like UFOs. If you've seen something directly above your head so close you could throw a rock at it, how can you not believe in what you've seen with your own eyes?
I was 700 miles north of in Manitoba from Winnipeg, just outside the Manitoba border in Ontario. I won't name the lodge. There's a half a dozen, they're log cabin style with bunks, like for the lodging for the people that come to stay there. They fish. There's 3 people, just the fishing guide, an Aboriginal man, and myself, and my boyfriend. His job was to do maintenance, take care of the boat motors and, gas the boats and oil them and make sure they're running properly and maintenance around the place. My job was to take care of the cleaning of the cabins and the making of the beds and the cooking. And anyway, the Keebler people were there. So that was the group. They were from the States, and they had come to fish. So the guide's job is to take them to the best fishing spots, and they catch fish, and they get all drunk and everything and tell all their stories about all these big fish they caught. Meanwhile, he caught them all. But anyway, where we stayed, when all of the lodgings were filled, was the cabin. There was like a log cabin not too far from the lodgings, like maybe 3/4 of a mile. And this is right out in the bush. It's all just bush, wild, wild bush. And anyway, it was August. It was really, really hot. And inside the cabin where we stayed in, there's a big wooden door on the inside, but it was so hot. There's an outside door, which is just a swinging door with this big screen in it, and the hook was on the door. And outside, just above the door, is like a lamp light, just so that you can see to go to the outhouse, to go to the bathroom.
Sure.
Okay? So I woke up wanting to go to the toilet, to go to the outhouse. And I couldn't get up. Like, I tried to get up off the bed, and I couldn't get up off the bed. I felt myself being pushed back down into sitting position. And I thought, I was just sleepy and still out of it. And I tried again, and the same thing happened. So I'm sitting there. I can move every other part of my body, my feet, my arms, my head, everything, but I cannot get up off the bed. And I looked ahead toward the screen door thinking, well, this is weird. I can't get up. I can't go to the outhouse. And as I'm looking toward the screen door, this man, an old man, not an elderly man, but an old man, walks right through the door. Doesn't open the door, walks right through the door. Not an apparition, a full body person. Turned on the kitchen light. There's an old kettle, those old ones with the wire handle and a wooden handle with the wire,
yes.
With the pointy spout.
Yes.
It's like aluminum, and a gas stove. So he goes over, there's a water pump. He dumped out the kettle. He pumped water into a container that sat beside with a spout so you could pour that into the top of the kettle. He took off the lid, poured the water into the kettle, turned on the gas, and he sat down at the kitchen chair, on the kitchen chair by the table, waiting for the water to boil. He got up, he opened the cupboard door, and he took out, there's only one teacup in there with a saucer. Everything else was mugs.
Okay, not a lot of time, Sandra.
He pulls it out. He puts it on the kitchen counter. He takes down the sugar bowl. He opens the drawer, takes out a spoon. He puts the sugar in the cup. He takes the tea bag from the box. He puts it in the cup, and he brings it and he sits it on the table. Then he goes and he gets the kettle and he puts the water in the cup, puts the kettle back on the stove, sits back down, and he takes the spoon and he's squeezing the tea bag. I'm sitting watching everything he's doing. And I was really feeling scared because I could move every other part of my body, but I could not get up. I felt pressure to sit where I was sitting. And I just got up the gumption to say, who are you and what are you doing in our cabin? Because I thought it was one of these maybe Keebler people, but it wasn't anybody I had recognized.
So what did he say to you?
And he says to me, you just sit there and be quiet. I want to have my tea in peace.
I see.
So I am going, oh my God, what if this guy finishes his tea and starts to get a lumberjack T-shirt on, and you know those dark green pants that engineers wear?
Mm-hmm.
He had clothes on like that, and I thought, what if he finishes his tea and starts taking off his clothes, thinking he's going to get into bed and go to sleep? So I start pounding my boyfriend with the side of my fist all up and down his back as hard as I can, right? Just pounding him. And he won't wake up. He just won't wake up. And
okay, Sandra, we got to get to the end of this story. We're out of time here.
Well, anyway, so the man says to me, quit hitting him. Let him sleep. I just want to have my tea in peace. And I'm like, oh, my God. He finishes his tea. He gets up. He picks up the saucer. He walks to the counter. He puts the saucer on the counter. He walks to the screen door, and he turns around, and he looks at me, and he says, I'll leave the light on for you, and you can go and pee now. And he walks through the screen door, just like the way he came in. So I figured the native guide might know something about some kind of history of myths or anything from that area. And I went up to him and I said, you're going to think I'm nuts. And he goes, no, actually, I know what you're going to tell me. You saw the old man. And I said, then you know about this. He said, did he have his cup of tea? I said, yeah. And I said, and the tea bags there, the saucer, the teacup, the spoon, everything. And I said, if you were to have touched that kettle, the water was hot. I know I saw what I saw. And
well, I'm sure you did, Sandra. I'm going to have to leave it there. My guesstimation would be that this man knew you. And just what he did was he froze you to the spot, knowing otherwise what would become of him.
The story began and ended on Halloween night, and it's a pretty scary one, I think.
Okay.
Let me just start by saying I was in college. I was dorming with a few friends off campus at an apartment. And about half a mile down the road was a house that I suspected to be haunted. I've seen ghosts before and things like that, which is a whole different story. But I just felt that this house was haunted just from the way it looked, the things that were going on. Nothing actually was going on there. You never seen anybody. The only thing that ever happened there was that there would be a curtain up in the high window that on occasion was drawn slightly.
This was an unoccupied or occupied house?
I had asked neighbors and other people if they'd seen anybody live there. They said no. It looked like someone had lived there. I mean,
I always kind of live near what I would always think of as a haunted house. You know what they look like. We all do from having seen the movies.
It just seemed haunted. No, you never seen any people. You asked neighbors, they never seen any people. I don't know.
So did you finally decide to investigate?
Yes, that's on Halloween night.
Inevitably.
I convinced some friends. Actually, my girlfriend, who's now I'm getting married to 9 years later.
She's marrying you?
Yes. This happened 9 years ago.
Well, I guess if you could talk her into doing that.
Yes.
Anyway, proceed.
I coaxed her and another couple to, let's go down there. It's Halloween night. Let's see if anything happens. So we take a walk. This house sat right on a creek, pretty large creek. And right across it, there was a bridge there, a wood bridge.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know what it was, but nobody had the guts to get too close to the house. We just wouldn't do it. It just seemed ominous. It was Halloween.
Right.
I had convinced them that it was haunted. So what we decided to do is go across the bridge to the other side of the creek, take a walk behind. We're pretty far away. We'll sit there and kind of just check things out, see if anything happens.
Yes.
Well, nothing happens. So we're kind of, what are we going to do now? Let's take a walk down the creek a little while. Maybe 150 feet getting past the house, we noticed something across the other side of the house. It looks like there's a shack there.
Right.
And we're like, wow, look at that. There's a shack back in the woods. So we all start to approach it, and it appears that someone's sitting inside the shack, actually in the door opening, sitting on a stool with a shotgun in their hand. This is on Halloween night at, 12 o'clock at night. It's midnight.
With a shotgun.
Yeah, it looks like someone's sitting there with a shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
We, of course, take off. We run.
Gotcha.
And we catch our breath and we say, I think we just were seeing things, There was nothing there. It's dark out. Let's go back. Let's go back and see if it really was a shack there. So we do. We go back, and we still see the shack. It doesn't look like the door's open now. So I decide, me and the guy, friend of the girl, stay behind. And we decide to venture and see what's going on. The closer we get to this shack, it just vanishes.
The shack vanishes?
The closer we get, it just starts to...
Missed out.
It just is gone. There's nothing there. I mean, now we're there where it would be, and we're just standing in the middle of the woods.
Holy mackerel.
The only thing,
yes,
exactly at that same moment that we realize the shack isn't there, there's a graveyard of cars. And when I say a graveyard of cars, it was like let me just tell you that the cars that were there had to be, I don't know, we didn't count them, but there was 30 to 50 Corvairs.
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 A lot of
considered
Corvairs
to be the most deadliest cars ever.
A lot of Corvairs died.
They weren't like crashed or anything. They were just there. They were like weathered. You know what I mean?
Yes, of
They
course,
were weathered.
yes.
It looked like vandals had maybe busted out windows, things like that.
This is too weird. And you're telling me this
is
graveyard
the
of cars was all around you, or where was it with reference?
Hey, come over, see this. Everybody, we were all there now. There's four of us, well, including me. And we're standing on top of now cars. Corvairs. They're all Corvairs.
Uh-huh.
They're not damaged at all, other than just look like they had been there for 50 years or however long they were made.
Right.
There was just two different cars there, though, and they weren't like that. They were totaled. What you could say was fatal crashes. They were totaled, and I remember what they were because we were like, it was a Toyota Love Truck. Do you remember those?
Yes, I do.
It was a Toyota Love Truck and some kind of Subaru, and they were crushed to what you would consider to be fatal crashes.
Right.
The Corvairs were fine. They were just there. That freaked us out pretty good, We're like, but nothing really that I would say supernatural happened. This was Halloween night. That happened. The night did seem kind of spooky, but that happens on Halloween.
I'd say it's pretty supernatural if a shack completely disappears and a graveyard of cars appears.
Yeah, that's not the end of the story.
Okay, go ahead.
About 9 months later, maybe 9 to 10 months later, it's beginning to be fall. You know, I live in Ohio. It was probably late summer.
Right.
But it was fallish.
Yes.
I had told lots of people about this story. Nobody ever would go back in the woods to find the cars, but they were there. I mean, we went back again during the daylight and seen them there.
Ah.
They were there. They were real.
All right.
The house still seemed haunted and never seen any people there.
All right, we're running short on time.
Okay. About 9 months later, a friend of mine tells me that he's seen a bunch of Corvairs parked around that house. And I was like, are you kidding me? You know, what are you talking about? He said, man, I just drove by there, you know, an hour ago, and I seen a bunch of Corvairs parked around that house you were talking about.
Yes, and?
So I decided to grab a friend of mine, and we went out there.
And?
And the house was totally destroyed. I don't know how to describe it.
Okay. We have no more time.
No more time?
Is there a punchline here?
No, I'm just telling the story.
Okay. So it was all gone then?
Pretty much.
I appreciate the call, sir. That was paranormal, definitely. Things don't disappear and then become something else. Guys with shotguns in cabins don't disappear.
I have a very good friend that works for one of the major airlines in this country, maybe the biggest airline, actually. And there are some planes, and I'm intentionally not going to tell you which airline it is. Actually, they've made movies about it. But because of the violent nature of airplane crashes, companies that have been in the business for a very long time and have had crashes know planes are haunted. There are some bone-chilling stories to be told about haunted airplanes. And because I don't want to compromise something that's been told to me, I'm not going to pass it on to you. I'm just going to say, believe it. There are some airplanes that are that have more flying than just the paying passengers. Let me put it that way. You're on the air. From where are you calling, please?
I'm calling from Seattle, KVI.
Seattle, yes, sir.
This happened about 11 years ago. I had a girlfriend who had been killed in a car accident by a drunk driver. She had gotten in the accident on August 18th, and on August 20th, she had been pronounced dead 2 months before her 20th birthday. On Halloween night exactly, there was a party at the house where she had used to live. Her roommates had decided to have a party to try and get over the grieving process and whatnot.
Yes.
We had hired a band out of Everett, and I was over at the house to let the band in. And the band that had came, nobody knew about Lisa that had died. And the head singer for the band had gone into the bathroom back by Lisa's bedroom. It was a female with dark hair. Lisa had red hair. Mm-hmm. She was in the bathroom combing her hair, and she let out a scream like I have never heard before in my life. I went running back there, and she's standing there in the mirror, just white as could be. And she looked at me and she said, "Somebody has died here." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "I looked into the mirror, and it wasn't my face."
Oh.
And then she said, she described Lisa right to a T. And she walked out of the bathroom and turned and looked right at Lisa's room and said, "That's her room." Well, the first thing I thought was that these people were trying to play a very sick joke. And got together with a couple other people and were talking about it. And this girl from the band kept wanting to leave. And before she had gone into the bathroom, she had been so excited about playing this gig. Later in the evening, I was standing in Lisa's bedroom talking to somebody, and I looked into the window and saw her reflection from behind me and heard her voice asking me to leave. And I left the party, and then later that night, over $10,000 damage was done to that house by people getting out of hand. And
Wow.
I just really believe, and, just sitting here recalling it, I get the shakes like I did that night. And I just really believe that she had came back not wanting people sitting there getting drunk.
I'm kind of curious about something. How has this affected your spiritual life? Since that time, what's your belief system like? I mean, are you now absolutely convinced that there is another life?
Oh, yes. I've been convinced. When I was a child, my parents owned a mobile home, and they had always told us that this mobile home was haunted, and have always told this story. And we always thought they were kidding with us, trying to scare us and whatnot. And until this happened, I really didn't believe it. And, I still get the shakes. I'm sitting here shaking now, thinking about it.
Hearing these other stories must be a very reinforcing experience for you.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for the call.
Thank you.
And good morning. And if you're just joining us, welcome to the program. We're telling ghost stories.
When I was young, my father bought a house, and it was built in the 1920s. And this guy gave it to him for a really good price, and so he bought it. And 2 weeks later, the guy came back and begged him to have the house back, and said he should have explained to him more about what happened in the house before he had sold it to him. So anyway, my father said, no, this is our first house, we're going to keep it. And apparently what this guy told my father, and he never said anything to the family for years till later, was that there were 3 generations living in the house. They were from the West Indies, and they were practicing voodoo. And basically, he said he wanted to buy the house back from him, and that he shouldn't have let a young family buy the house in the first place, knowing the history. So anyway, my father thought, well, we're just going to live with it, and went on with that. And then
he accepted it. I would have, what I would have assumed? I would have assumed that the guy somehow had seller's remorse, or somehow, wanted the house back. And a good story of a haunting in the house is a great way to scare somebody to sell it back to you. Now,
maybe that's what my dad thought.
Yeah.
Because he was a pretty skeptical person when it came to this kind of thing.
Sure.
But then a lot of things happened all through the years when we had lived in the house. A lot of weird things happened, and in fact, it led to it got so bad that we'd had 3 or 4 priests come to the house and bless the house. And there was one time when it was so bad, one priest was summoned to come to the house. And
well, what could have happened in that house to be so bad that you would summon a priest?
Just a lot of different things. We had a lot of religious paraphernalia on the walls, like crosses and pictures of Jesus and things like that.
Yes.
And we had this one cross that kept dropping to the floor. And there was no way that that could happen because of the way it was hung on the wall. It was right above the basement door. Mm-hmm. And that kept falling. And my dad thought, geez, why does this thing keep coming off the wall? That happened, and my mom had a lot of weird things happen where she'd be sleeping and she'd feel a tremendous weight on top of her.
Oh, yes.
She couldn't move.
Oh, yes.
And it became so commonplace, I didn't think anything of it when she would call out in the middle of the night and say, pass me my rosary or pass me the Bible, which she'd keep on her nightstand, but she was paralyzed. She couldn't move. So I'd come and give this to her, and whatever it was left.
Uh-huh.
And it was always targeting her, and I thought, well, maybe it's targeting her because she's always sick. So maybe she's weak in some way. And
sure, I think they go, they go after the weak.
Yeah, so things like that used to go on, and my dad said certain parts of the house were really cold, and we noticed it too. Things like that. And there were just a lot of things like this going on all the time, weird things. We'd hear footsteps on the basement steps, and there's a man who, before we moved in, hung himself in the bedroom downstairs.
Oh, this house just has a great all right, so anyway, what happened?
Then anyway, when the 3rd or 4th time we'd called a priest over the years, one time when these things were occurring more often, he came, and it was a different priest this time. And he got out of his car, and my dad came and opened the front door and saw him arrive, and he was going to greet him. And he wouldn't come over to the house. He wouldn't even step across the street onto the pavement that was out front of our house. He said he felt something that was so bad to the house, he didn't even want to enter or come onto our lawn.
Right.
And my dad came down the stairs, and I was standing in the doorway watching. The priest was apologizing, saying, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to send somebody else because whatever is there, I can feel it. It's quite bad, and it's, he goes, I can't handle this. And he left. He was scared. He didn't want to come in the house.
Now that's really bad. I mean, a priest arrives to do something for the house, and it's so bad that he leaves? Oh.
He left. So we had this other guy. He sent him out, and he felt very bad. He was apologizing a lot, and he even phoned back a few times to apologize. He felt really badly about leaving us there.
I understand. It's kind of like a doctor getting up and walking away from some guy who's bleeding on the street,
Yeah. So we had things like that going on all the time, and I don't know. It just seemed to continue, and then one day, when everyone was older, when the children weren't children anymore, it seemed to have just went away. So.
Well, it may, thank you very much, it may have been the children that brought it in the first place. Particularly teenage girls, I don't know why, but particularly teenage girls have a propensity for attracting these things, or creating them, or summoning them, or being the source of them. We don't exactly know which is true, but we just know the phenomena tends to occur frequently around teenage girls. Now, why do you suppose that might be?
In 1992, I was working as a 911 emergency paramedic in Oakland, California. One night, as I was getting ready for work, I was kind of half watching this TV show about ghosts. One of the stories caught my attention, so I sat down to watch. Now, this might also come under the category of synchronicity. You tell me as you listen. It was about the Hotel del Coronado in Coronado, California. The hotel where Some Like It Hot with Marilyn Monroe was filmed. In the story, this woman named Kate was apparently haunting the hotel. I watched the rest of the story, then ran out of the door, almost late for work. As my partner and I sat waiting for a call, I began to tell her the story that I'd seen on TV. But for some unknown reason, I couldn't remember the name of the hotel. At that moment, we got an emergency call. We ran the call, brought the patient to the hospital. The whole time I'm trying to remember the name of that doggone hotel. Well, we arrive at the hospital and wheel the patient inside. As I'm giving my report to the nurse in the emergency room, I just happen to glance behind the desk, and hanging on the wall is a calendar. And the full-color, large picture on the calendar is, you guessed it, the Hotel del Coronado. Well, I tend to pay attention to these little things, and took this as an invitation from Kate to visit her hotel. So, I reserved one of their smallest, cheapest rooms, and the next time I had a 4-day weekend, I packed up my convertible, drove down the coast from San Francisco to San Diego, arrived at the hotel, went up to the desk to check in, and the clerk says, "Oh, I'm sorry, all of the small, cheap rooms, like the one you had reserved, are booked up." Let me see. Oh, we do have this suite with a balcony overlooking the courtyard in the old section of the hotel. Will that be all right? He said, "I'll give it to you for the same price as the small, cheap, cheesy room you had reserved." Naturally, I say okay, and I'm beginning to think this is going to be a very interesting stay. So, up I go, took a bubble bath, drank a beer out of the room bar. Shouldn't do that, by the way, they're terribly expensive. Jumped on the bed, as is my habit any time I stay in an expensive hotel. I took a nap and got dressed for dinner. Went down to the bar for a cocktail. The bartender brought all of my drinks. Had dinner in one of the restaurants, and when I asked for my check, the waiter told me that a gentleman who had been seated across the room had paid the check. The rest of the visit was uneventful. No apparitions, no funky stuff, until the stay at the hotel never showed up on my credit card bill. Now, I'm a relatively honest person, and under normal circumstances, I probably would have called the Hotel del Coronado, told them about their oversight. However, when viewed with everything else that occurred, the calendar, the upgrade, the free drinks, the free dinner, it was rather apparent to me that I had indeed been a guest, Kate's guest, at the Hotel del Coronado. She is a fine hostess, and I hope to return one of these days. And I have, of course, many more like this. And if any of you have a particularly good ghost story, we're going to do two things. One, we are going to tell ghost stories from those of you who call on the call-in lines. And we are going to also invite you, rather than sending in a fax with your ghost story, if you have a particularly good one, send me a fax with your phone number, and I will call you. Hello, Mike.
How are you? My story starts, I'm a stuntman, and I do a lot of traveling around the country, and I was in Coral Gable, Florida, and there's a big hotel there called the Coral Gable that used to be Al Capone's, like, hangout. And so I went down there to do a film with a couple of buddies of mine, and as I walked into the hotel, it's this huge palatial hotel that, it's like a huge mansion.
Was it a movie I would remember?
Bad Boys?
Bad Boys.
With Will Smith.
I think I do recall that, yes.
Yeah, I've been in a lot of films. And I've come across a lot of ghosts, too, but this one was the scariest one that's ever happened to me. And so I walked through the door, and I was with my friend Richard, and I turned to him and I said, "This place is haunted, man. This place is haunted." He said, "I said, "Did you feel that when I walked through the door? It's like a cold wind." Now, this place is huge. It's not little. It's massive. And so we got assigned to our room, and I was the only stuntman that was on the 5th floor. And so I went to bed early because I had an early call that morning. And so around 11:30, I hear a knock at my door. I get up, look out, and there's nobody there. And one of the guys is playing a joke on me, right? So I lay back down, start to go to sleep, and I start feeling my covers being pulled off me. Right? And I sit up, and I look down there, and I thought someone snuck in, right? So, okay, whatever. Knock at the door again. Go to the door, nobody's there. Now I'm getting kind of irritated, and I'm hearing like a party going on down the hallway, and it's like noisy. I'm trying to get to sleep. I got a 4:30 call. I'm getting real agitated. So I lay back down again, cover myself up. The covers start pulling off me again, and I'm saying, someone's short-sheeting me or something here, right?
Right.
So I get up, door knocks again, open up, and there's a guy at the end of the hallway wearing a tuxedo and a red carnation with his hair slicked back. And he looks kind of odd because it looks like a period suit,
yes,
like a 1920 period.
Yes, sir.
And I looked at the guy and I said, "Hey, bud, I'm trying to get some sleep. I got to go to work tomorrow. Could you just knock it off? It's not funny." And he kind of laughed and turned and walked down the hallway. So I shut my door, and all night long, party. I called downstairs and I said, "Look, you know what? I'm going to have to change rooms. This floor's way too noisy." And she says, "Oh, you're on the 5th floor." I went, "Yeah." And she says, "Okay." So I hang up, go to sleep, and I didn't sleep much that night. And I get up the next morning, and I go down to the lobby, and there's a historical society booth right there.
Yes.
And I said, "Excuse me," I said, "is this place haunted?" And she started laughing. She says, "Oh, this is one of the most haunted places in North America." And I'm going, "Oh, thanks." I said, she says, "You weren't staying on the 5th floor, were you?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, that was where the morgue used to be during World War II. It was converted into a hospital, and that was the morgue."
Oh, my.
And I went, "Well, great." So immediately I went to the front desk and I said, "I'd like to be moved off the 5th floor."
That's what I would have done.
It was pretty, and even talking about it gives me the heebie-jeebies. But can I tell you one more quick story?
Very quickly, yes.
Okay, I was at Rosemary Clooney's house, and the house used to belong to Russ Columbo. And Russ Columbo was a crooner during the 20s. He's like kind of a predecessor to Bing Crosby.
Yes, sir.
And so I went into their bathroom. I didn't know their house was haunted at the time. I went into their bathroom, and I started going to the bathroom, and some guy behind me goes, "Hey, buddy, what do you think you're doing?" And I jumped literally out of the bathroom, zipping myself up and running into the front room going, "Oh, my God, there's a guy in your bathroom."
You're probably not needing the bathroom.
No. I was like, my friend, Miguel, who's Rosemary's son, started laughing. He goes, "Oh, that was Russ Columbo. He goes, he's always playing tricks in the house. He's been dead. He got shot in the head here.
Oof. So, you, wow, oh my, shot in the head.
Yeah, he got it by accident. It was one of those fake cannons that, you know, you buy through mail order or whatever, and someone had put a BB or a marble inside it, and when it was set off, it ricocheted around the room and hit him in the head.
All right, I appreciate the call, sir. Thank you.
I used to live out in an area of North Salinas where to get home, I would be driving basically down the agricultural area.
How long ago were you in Salinas?
Well, I moved from Salinas about 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Well,
I grew up there.
I actually lived in Salinas and worked for KDON Radio.
Yes, remember it quite well.
Do you, KDON?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Right.
Yes, grew up listening to KDON.
There you are.
But I lived out in North Salinas and was one night coming home, and one of the phenomenons of the agriculture area is you can be driving through the town and it's perfectly clear, and if they're watering, you'll get out there and all of a sudden you'll just hit fog like you wouldn't believe.
That's right.
And I was coming down on Natividad and turned onto a street called Rogie that led to my house, and had no sooner turned on it when a gentleman stepped out in front of my car, I mean literally in front of the right fender, and I went through him. Literally through him. He was wearing blue jeans, a jean jacket, plaid like a flannel shirt, and then had his hands up like he was asking for help. And, of course, when I went by him, you know, I panicked. I'm thinking, oh, my God, did I hit somebody? Do I go back? And then it started hitting me that, no, there was no bump. And I can remember seeing a truck in the distance behind him, like a truck had broken down. So I'm driving, and I'm just panicking. Do I go back? Do I check? But I'm thinking to myself, no, there was no bump. And I went through him. The car literally went through him, and it got cold. But I just went home, slept with the lights on, and didn't think too much about it for about a week.
Yes.
And I went to have dinner with a good friend, and I was telling her about this. And she started getting pale. And she goes, you got to come down to my house. You got to talk to my dad. So I go to her house, and she lived in the same area. And I talked to her dad, and it turns out that a couple of months earlier, they had been coming home late in the evening, same type of circumstances, from Disneyland.
Same thing, huh?
And all of a sudden, their dad, he was driving, and they were in the front seat with him. He just swerved. And they go, well, what did you do? And he goes, well, didn't you see that guy? And they went, what guy? He goes, well, the guy that was standing there. And they, well, there was nobody there. And he's like, oh, my God, you know, there was a truck over there, and, you know, you didn't see it. He goes, no. And so I'm talking to him, and my hair is starting to stand up, and I asked him, I said, what was this guy wearing? And he went, jeans jacket, jean pants, and a red flannel-type shirt. And it was just so, I mean, all of a sudden there's this person that I hadn't talked to, didn't know anything about it, and he was confirming that he had also seen the same thing. So I went back into some of the archives of the Salinas, California paper.
And?
About 3 years earlier, a young man had been killed there. His car had obviously broken down, and when a truck came out in front of him, he stepped out, but he obviously miscalculated how close he was, and he was killed.
And let me guess how he was dressed.
I don't know. They didn't say, but I have a good idea.
Yeah. I'm sure you're correct.
I never drove that road again at night. Never, never.
Don't blame you for a second. Well, listen, we're out of time. We could go and go and go and go. If after listening to 5 hours of all of this, you don't believe we're more than flesh and bones, then you just haven't been listening. Tell everybody good night.
Good night, everybody, and sleep with your lights on.
I imagine a lot of people will be doing just that this night. That's Ghost to Ghost. I'm Art Bell from the high desert. Good night.